I thought it was a really good episode.
I really like this episode.
Excellent. 10 out of 10. No notes.
Wow, that's wow. That was another home run for RTD.
Season 1 I wasn't too keen on, but see this season I'm actually like I'm eating it like it's a nice warm pie. It's juicy, it's great, it's got lots of good lore, it's got lots of good story, and I feel that is what Doctor Who needs to come back.
With a story, either I like it and therefore I can't tolerate the stuff that doesn't work, or I didn't like it and I can't really get past the stuff that didn't work, and this one I'm kind of on the cusp.
It's an apt title as well for it, I think, because it feels like Russell T Davies keeps John from the well of his ideas from his first era constantly.
Just immediately the atmosphere was settled. They went straight out the TARDIS, straight into an adventure, flying down the moon, the darkness.
And also, those costumes were absolute slay. I love those. Like, I want to cosplay those like space suits. They're just so cool.
The way it sounded when they touched down, and then them speaking through the helmets, the way the helmets lit their face, and when they looked up and saw the sky from this alien planet and the landscape, I thought all that was beautiful. I thought all the elements, like the visual effects, the lighting, the sound, the music, just all worked together in a way that was stunning. I thought that was one of the best, if not the best, like landing on an alien planet, seeing an alien planet moments in Doctor Who ever.
Belinda seemed to actually be doing something in this episode. I feel like she was kind of in the background in both Lux and the opener.
And her kindness keeps coming through. I mean, even for example, like they step onto this like base where, you know, who knows what might be happening, and someone warns Belinda, don't touch them, and she's like, but they might still be alive. Which is, of course, like what a lot of people who go into the medical field would think. They're not thinking of themselves first. They're thinking, but this person might be alive, I have to help them.
As someone who had forgot it was a sequel to Midnight and essentially went in blind, I actually did find it quite an intriguing mystery at first. Why have only some been shot while others have been essentially like physically assaulted? Why are the mirrors broken, etc.?
The bunk beds look like Red Dwarf, possibly deliberately.
I also like the aliens reference as well.
Yep.
You know, that we're going to nuke it from orbit. The Marines going through the building with the corridors and the beep 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 with the heartbeat machine. That was a really nice little homage.
Alice was great.
The reveal that she's the last one alive was quite shocking.
I didn't initially think that her being deaf was actually relevant to the episode, but then no, the whisper is coming in her ears, and I was like, okay, that's why nothing happened.
When I saw she was deaf, immediately I was like, whatever's going on here is something to do with a sound.
Ha.
I just knew it immediately.
I do think it's interesting how when you have disabled characters you can use that as like shorthand, because the Doctor being able to sign does make him more trustworthy to as a deaf character.
As someone who is deaf myself, I really felt every moment of that and how well it was done.
I think it's great that Doctor Who is doing representation of disabled people, because this wasn't Doctor Who's first time with deaf people, because we already had deaf representation in the late two-parter from series 9.
So we have this diversity, and it's not just there to be that, oh, we've got diversity. It's actually, no, we want to represent our fans who are diverse. Like in last week's episodes, Lux, you had one of the, when they broke the fourth wall, one of those characters was in a wheelchair. It wasn't brought up, it wasn't focused on, it was just there, because that's what it's like in real life.
I also do think it's interesting that deafness keeps coming to like the horror episodes of Doctor Who, because obviously Under the Sea, Under the Lake had a deaf character in it as well, and that was a very horror episode as well.
The way they were communicating and everything was done so beautifully with the sign language and everything, and the fact that they incorporated proper annoyances in as well, or I need to be able to live with you, don't turn your back on me.
Yeah.
Because it's the biggest thing he can possibly say to you, it didn't matter because we didn't hear you, it didn't matter. never turn the back on anybody, because if we can't see your face, how are we meant to know? Because we might only hear every second or third word.
Exactly.
Though I've got to say, I don't really appreciate how the Doctor keeps using people's disabilities against them. Because, like, he also did that in the episode with the blind girl. Like, he wrote stuff because she couldn't see it, and then he tries to speak so she can't hear him, instead of just, like, walking away.
It didn't feel forced, because the last time RTD did a bit about accessibility was when he was like, look, the TARDIS is wheelchair accessible now. It's finally in the 21st century. And I felt as if he was patting himself on the back within the script for doing that. Whereas this felt a lot more natural. It's just like the way it would be. Like, it makes sense. Of course you should have a button you can press that then translates what you're saying for the person that you're trying to communicate with. That's a totally logical thing to have, and I liked the little details, like the fact that they can cast to another part of the room.
If you had to read what was on someone's chest, but you were talking, you would have to like cast it to someone else, and they actually made use of that.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't just a gimmick for the episode. I loved it when the captain, I forget her name, sorry, used it against the guy who tried to take over. It's like, what was it, like, Alice, do a 180. That was actually really clever.
Yeah.
I felt like the technology was interesting, but I'm also like thinking how, like, technically that technology already exists, but we don't use it like that at all.
He had, over the many years, learned how to speak and sign at the same time, but for the majority of non-hearing people, they tend to do what we call voice off and don't speak, because if you try to speak in English and try to sign, you would end up confusing yourself way more than you would generally normally, because you're trying to structure the sentence one way and trying to structure the sentence a different way. Because if you look at what he was signing, what he was saying was slightly different than what you might not kind of be looking at what he signed at every word he was speaking.
See, obviously I don't
There's a lot of
speak.
that, and if you watch Unleashed, they actually worked very hard to achieve that possibility, because they had someone who was deaf on in the team working there to make sure everybody was done right. They even got her to run through the entire script and make sure everything was lined up so that what they needed, and have her input in and line everything up. It was so much care and thought was put into it, and not just the throwing it in as a one-off gimmick type thing.
Rose, who was the actress in it who was deaf, well, I thought done a really great job, and she added some emotion to it, and I think that made me care a lot as well, because I wanted her to be safe, and I wanted like the entity or the monster to like be defeated.
He would have had to have had that script, then she would have had to rewrite her lines out, because of Ayling-Eliis and BSL don't structure in the same way. Because with BSL, for Ayling-Eliis you might say, I went to the shop and bought milk, but then for BSL we might say, I bought milk at the shops.
It's like
it's not structured in the same way. A lot of the joining words that we would use every day Ayling-Eliis get scrapped. You might use some of them, but most of it gets scrapped. It's more direct.
It's giving great sound design. It's giving great atmosphere. It's giving great acting.
I loved all the characters in this. I love it when all the characters in an episode actually do something as opposed to just being there for filler.
Like the leader of that squadron, again I forgot her name. I thought she was really good, and I liked her backstory as well.
I thought, considering I think the biggest, or one of the biggest issues that Doctor Who has sometimes had in recent years is about pacing, and things just being so fast and even rushed, I think a lot of people have said. I thought this one was beautifully paced. I thought everything kind of had time to breathe.
I can't remember the actor's name, but he was like the main soldier who like just wasn't happy with everything. I remember him from Slow Horses, and I thought he was good. Just everyone done a great job.
There was some really good tension building up to it in terms of the reveal of the monster and the sort of it follows feeling about it infecting whoever it gets killed or whatever. It was a very neat idea and a very interesting one. and the tension really did work for me.
You said something about the galvanic radiation. I can't remember what the word is, but galv something radiation, and I was like, I heard that before. Desolate planet with it. And then I realised, and I nearly paused it to tell Catriona and Robert that I think this might be midnight, but I thought, no, I'm going to stay quiet, because if it is,
I'm glad you did.
Yeah, because it's a good revelation.
There's a certain sequence where they start to talk about where they are, and seeing the sheer dread in Chuty's face when he starts to realise that they're on midnight. My hairs on my neck and my arms start to raise. I was like, holy shit.
When the revelation happened, I was like, oh
my, and then you're given a 2008 standard definition image of David Tennant frozen like that because he's being controlled.
And this is not really a negative, it's more like just a little nitpick, but I don't know. I'm pretty sure we're meant to take from what Ncuti said during the episode that the Doctor assumes that this is the same individual that he met on midnight 400,000 years ago. And I'm like, I don't actually... I get why he thinks that, why we as the audience think that, like he's on the same planet, that was really memorable, blah blah blah, but logically I don't actually know why he's leapt to that conclusion.
I disagree. I feel like it's very unknowable how long these entities live, and for me it just felt automatically correct.
It's a whole planet. Of course it felt automatically correct, but if you think about it logically, it's a whole planet. Why would it be the same individual, even if it's the same species?
I know, but I don't really think about it logically, because quite often when I'm watching Doctor Who, I just turn off my brain and go, yeah, sure, Doctor, whatever, yeah, sure.
I'm fine with it being connected to midnight. I like to pretend it's not the same monster, because it's not acting like the same monster. It could be its best buddy down a shaft somewhere. Fine, whatever.
it's once again playing on the paranoia of the cast, where the leader of the group, she's having a major disagreement with one of her subordinates, and said subordinate is saying, right, I'm taking command in the event of you just being incompetent, which she clearly was not being competent.
At midnight you've got the entity manipulating and using people, but then now it's whispering. So was it whispering the entire time, or has it just evolved enough to hit that tiny bit of voice?
I did have the worry that they were going to show the midnight creature, because I think one of the most terrifying things about the midnight entity in its titular first story, you don't see it.
The whole point of a sequel is you kind of build on what came before, but the whole magic of that thing is we don't know, so how do you build on something you're not supposed to know about?
Like, you don't even see what it looks like, and that made it very terrifying. And even though we kind of got some glimpses here and there, they're just glimpses where you need to kind of pause the episode in order to see.
I was like, oh wow, are they going to show the enemy this time? But no, the enemy was still invisible.
Does it even have what we would call a body, considering it seems to be invisible and to some extent maybe ethereal, like kind of quasi-ethereal? It kind of chooses to be physical when it throws people around, but other times it's just kind of ethereal is the only word that's coming to mind.
Yeah.
Not non-corporeal, certainly.
Yeah.
There's a bit when you start when she says there's nothing behind me, look, and she turns 180 degrees, and I was like, how does that make sense? And it wasn't until later that we kind of had to parse it out, like, no, in order for something to be behind her, then there has to be a person in front of her, otherwise it's not behind. So that kind of, I don't know, maybe I'm stupid, but I didn't get that. And so she has to have a person in front of her, and then...
For someone to die by being behind her, there has to be someone directly in front of her as well. So that's why it makes sense her turning 180 degrees, and it's not bad.
But it's also behind her from every angle. And I quite like the way the captain was like, well, it doesn't make sense. There can't be something behind her from every angle. I like the way they were sort of parsing it out and going, this doesn't make sense. And then you sort of are like, okay, at least they also think this doesn't make sense. So that means that means you can suspend your disbelief a little bit more,
Yeah.
because they are also recognising that it's not logical. Because the Midnight Entity is not logical. It's a
But
sort
that
of
also-
strange, esoteric creature that doesn't obey the laws of physics.
My mum, actually, who I watched it with, brought up a really good idea. All we ever seen of it was technically the entity itself was outside of the bus carriage, whereas this time it was inside the facility. So we seen its powers when it was outside, manipulating people through the walls, but this time we seen it in person, if you will. We've got to see what this thing can do when you're face to face with it, not when it's outside the wall, but when it's actually in the room with you.
And that also built the tension, because their confusion and their arguments about how this was working and how it was going to go forward ramped up the tension and made it feel more kind of like, oh, what's going to go on here?
It's got a lot of potential, kind of fan theory potential. Like, some people will say, oh, it's evolved, as you say, because it was learning before. Oh, it's manipulating, it's copying. That looks like learning. And now several, like, what is it, like million or so years later, we get to the well and it's learned so much that it can whisper. It kind of gives this idea that it's maybe not a variant. Mind you, they say something about it laughing. It came out and it was laughing. Was it actually laughing, or is it like a hyena? We hear laughing, but hyenas. Was it actually laughing?
The bit where Shooty does his acting, you know, when he's behind, and it's like, and all I can see is that one fucking tear, and it's got from the point, it's not a gimmick anymore, it's distracting, and I can't tell whether he's doing well with the acting or not. And I feel as if he should be saying, I need to stop doing this. I'm glad they didn't show you the fucking thing, because, you know, I've read actual stories about people saying, do not describe the Midnight Monster. If you do, you ruin it, which is probably true. But the bit where he's like, it knows my name, and it's like, oh god, that was so eye-rolling. It's like, why does it know your name? It doesn't add for it to know your name.
And also a nice little reference as well to Alien 3 with the sort of falling backwards into oblivion, like, well, spoilers, but Ripley in Alien 3 falling backwards into the molten metal. I think
That was a lovely self-sacrifice as well.
You see a cutaway of her as a child running. Beautiful, beautiful imagery.
But at the end, it's like, and then she vanished with the other people so quickly. I had to check, like, are they alive or are they dead? Because when she did the thank you at the end, I thought it was going to be the monster talking to the doctor, and she'd never left. It had never left the back of this woman, and the doctor had literally got them on the ship, and the doors were closing and they couldn't do anything about it. And then the plot it totally went a completely different way.
The last act in particular, kind of, I'm still struggling with. I think it could have been done much clearer. I think it would have been more impactful if, like we did see, 3 people going into the airlock, one of them is infected because there's 4 people registered on the airlock. That happens. All of the tension in the remainder group of everyone thinking they're infected but they're not, and Kaylin Thingmay's character sacrificing herself would be all for nothing because no one was infected. It was the hysteria of it, and that's what was missing. I think was the impact of this monster. Like, yes, it has a physical impact by impacting you against a wall whenever you are at a 12 o'clock angle to it, but the emotional impact and the psychological impact that things like Midnight did wasn't there for this.
And it's like, as you've talked about how these people are not humans, and therefore their physiology is not the same as humans, but you can shoot a human at exactly the right point to get through to what? The solution didn't really make sense to me.
I like that Belinda is starting to get a sense of how dangerous the Doctor's adventures can be, and the fact that, like, she got shot shows that, like, everything's gonna, like, get a bit more dangerous, and I think that will maybe add to the sense of, like, look, just get me home or just get me back to where I'm meant to be.
The third episode of the series last year, Boom, had the companion nearly die or appear to be dead. So that's happened twice now. Interesting. Wouldn't make anything of it, but it's interesting. I think people kind of felt that this one was more impactful because I think Belinda, or rather said, who's acting, is a little bit more.
It's really good.
A more gravitas, maybe.
Yeah.
And Belinda, instead of going, yeah, go ahead, I can take it, she's like, okay. I really liked that.
The reveal that the entity's not away and could actually come back, so there could be a sequel to Midnight, which is quite crazy to think about. Makes it more exciting for me.
I kind of like how it implies that, but doesn't explicitly show, hinting that we may not have seen the last of the Midnight entity, and oh boy.
I know like they want to have that kind of like final girl-ish moment, but I just do think it kind of ruins it. I don't know if I really like the whole whispering aspect anyway, because like I feel like that wasn't developed as like why people started attacking each other because of the whispering.
It did seem like the villain escaped at the end, so it kind of felt like the sacrifice was kind of, did that need to happen?
The person takes the monster and then sacrifices herself into the well. I thought it was brilliant, and I thought it was kind of ruined a wee bit when it was revealed that, well, she didn't actually have the monster kind of got away.
Okay, what happened to Earth on May the 24th, 2025? And this is already very intriguing. It's already doing a much better attempt at a story arc over the TARDIS having stomach pains.
And I think with the Doctor, because he can get back to May 25 on Earth, and the fact that people in that episode have never heard of Earth, I think adds more scariness.
I've got to say, I've never really thought about it before, but yeah, Earth is a really stupid name for a planet, particularly given that there's infinitely more water on this planet than there is dirt.
No, well, like the Time Lords missing, but also we're definitely still there, and we will be back. I don't know. It's like kind of the destruction of Gallifrey all over again. Like, oh, well, it's destroyed right now, but like it'll be back. So.
Who the hell is Mrs. Floods, and why does she keep on popping up everywhere? Please, just tell us who you are. But I'm hoping that's going to be wrapped up soon because it's driving me nuts.
It's the first time I've actually not played the neighbour community type character.
As soon as
she'd actually get something else to do.
Yeah, the
and it's like, okay, now where do we stand? Because she was also looking at the Vindicator. Mm-hmm. Like, she was after that, so is that part of her plan?
Exactly, because she's...
Is that part of her plan, or is that just something she wants to destroy so they can't use it against her?
Mm-hmm. I think it is good to see Mrs. Flood, but I did get very Susan Twist vibes though, because as soon as you see her on the screen talking to one of the survivors, I just was reminded of Susan Twist as the mum in Dot and Bubble. It had the very much same energy of, we've got this reoccurring character in an outfit in front of some sci-fi stuff. It felt, but also different, because Susan Twist, it was a different character each time. Mrs. Flood, I believe that's the same person, just time travelling.
Who are you? I want to know, but
I don't know if I'm like strange. I do not care about her. Like I'm like, okay, you're here. Like I know this is going to be revealed to be something, but at this moment I don't care.
With the involvement of Mrs. Flood, I feel like they're teasing what she could be doing and what she is, which is quite interesting. I've seen a few theories.
Off the top of my head, I could theorise about her being the Master, the Rani, a god like Lux or Toymaker. Like, there is so much theory potential with what we've been given.
I'm hoping she's her own person, be it a god itself, or like Susan, anyone, just not a herald.
Maybe she'll be Carla.
Oh, and also, don't forget to click below and subscribe to the Glasgow Doctor Who Society, because we really need your well-deserved support. Hey. Those puns were intended this time.